Hey everybody, today is Friday the 21st of March, and I thought I would answer some of your comments and some of your feedback that you've shared with me on the videos that I've posted so far to the channel. Thought this was a good opportunity to add a bit more context to some of the discussion points that I've covered, but also just to add a little bit more information regarding who I am, why I'm here creating this channel, and a little bit about what we want to do moving forward. So stick with me today and hopefully maybe one of your comments has been answered here, but let's dive in. So I think the first comment that I want to tackle today came from WizzyNo1566. Usernames on this platform often crack me up, but yeah, so to Wizzy, his comment, which I'm showing on screen now, was 7 minutes and 2 seconds for bleep sake. I had to think about that, but it's early in the morning. I do have my coffee. Now, Wizzy says 7 minutes and 2 seconds, FFS, it's £50 and you were on a six-figure salary. I can appreciate that person is responding to my video about how much I've made on YouTube. And yes, at first glance, that would appear so. But what I've recognised with posting these videos to YouTube is that it's difficult to often include much of the context that goes into it whilst trying to keep the video under 3 hours long. So let me add a little bit of flavour to this. Wizzy is correct. I did mention in another video that I exited a job on a six-figure salary. Now, I didn't choose to leave that job. I was made redundant. I didn't get any say in it. But, and here's the context, for some time, Yvonne and I had been considering what our future would look like. And as I'm heading towards turning 50, it felt like a real pinnacle point to try and make a decision. Much that played into that was around my father's health. My father, who had raised me, was at home in Scotland and had started to decline very quickly. And Yvonne and I had looked at the options to move back home and have him come and live with us and to take care of him. And unfortunately, we didn't make it that far because he passed away after a very short run of ill health in hospital. So that kind of changed our plans. I left school when I was 15 and I moved into my very first job in retail at the age of 16. I'm now 47. I've spent 31 years building a career, and I didn't go to college. I didn't go to university. I left school and went straight into that employment, and I worked in retail. And I worked in sales within retail, and I very quickly discovered a passion for products and talking to customers about it, and I slowly started to build a career. And over those 31 years I've worked in retail, I've worked in utility organisations, I've worked for globally recognised technology businesses, and I've moved through roles as a basic sales level staff position on a shop floor, all the way through to a European director's role, which was my last position. And I'll say this, I share as much as I possibly can with you from a transparency perspective because I've built my own career out of being honest. I built relationships with some of the biggest retailers in the UK through being an honest and upfront salesperson. And yes, it would be right to say that six-figure salary is now gone. Now, there are opportunities for me to seek out a different career, to go back into employment, but I don't really feel that that's for me right now. And Yvonne herself has also built a career and we've never had a break. So the opportunity now to go and do something different is really appealing to us. So the six-figure salary is gone, and I'm not by any means trying to replace it suddenly with a £50 YouTube channel. This for me was a gateway into a new opportunity. And by that, I mean something that can fulfill my days as well as potentially offer some revenue coming in. I'm not trying to kid myself. I'm not living on £50. I don't think that's anywhere near realistic. But again, the context isn't quite there. So I was made redundant. That wasn't a choice. However, it is my choice on what comes next. And whilst I'm not delusional enough to think that 50 quid is going to sustain me, What it is doing for me is allowing my creativity, allowing me to build a community and give me the option of having some kind of income coming in as well as other routes that I'm exploring. Okay, next up from Urban Dad, aka Simon, who identified yesterday's movie question from the Vinted, which was Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Adams.
Here.
Adam Lee.
Here.
Great spot, Simon.
Bueller. Bueller. Bueller.
One of the all-time classic movies. I think when this came out, I would have been about 12 or 13. So watching a movie about a high schooler take the day off and drive into the city in a Ferrari was like a dream come true. Who didn't want to skip school, right? Who didn't want to have a day out like that? So perfect timing for my age, perfect to engage with my overactive brain, and it just ticked all the boxes, and it's never got old for me. Matthew Broderick will never be any older than he is in that movie. Have you seen it? Now, I had one here from Chasing Midnight, which stated, YouTube needs channels like yours, the real life aspect of it. And I think this will relate to the EV charging video where I said, YouTube tells you that you should explore your niche. And I asked, what is my niche? What is perfectly evident to me on YouTube is that misery sells, right? If you're looking for a channel where you can go and find somebody complaining on every single video about everything that's wrong, the viewers on those channels do exceptionally well. That just doesn't quite sit that well with me. I, as well as being Scottish, so I'm a pessimist, I am a glass half empty, natural character. I also am filled with optimism. I try and be as upbeat as possible. So the idea of making a misery video every single day is just not for me. I also saw a comment this morning from somebody talking about the difference in the views on the channel. Nearly 100,000 on that first video, and then my Findus Pancakes got about 400 or 500. Again, I made those videos because they're fun. For people that engage with them, great. If the general community is not interested, then I understand. I won't be able to make a video that will resonate with you all every single time. But for me, it provides variety. It's a little trigger for me to go down some kind of nostalgia route and share a funny story with you. But it's also just a good way for me to kind of document some of these stories and kind of relive them down the line at some point, right? Because in this day and age, our digital footprint has never been more important, whether that be how you consume content, media, whether you listen to your music, your news, all of that is online, and creating some kind of your own personal footprint at this point that you can look back on, I think is important. In the day and age when CDs and records and all these things are declining in popularity, online is important that you manage this as effectively as possible. That's what I'm doing by creating some of these videos. Now, I had one here from 5cram, which I guess is scram, using the kind of play on the 5 in the style of Deadmau5. Now, if you know anything about dance music, Deadmau5, massive EDM producer. I'm into dance music, and when I first found out about Deadmau5, I used to call him Deadmau5. Anyway, so that made me chuckle about Scram. Scram and also D230261 both picked up with some comments about the car charging. Again, context is really important here, right? I had a ramble in the car just about my general experience, but I'm not a car reviewer. I'm not an EV reviewer. I'm not trying to give you the technical specifications. I'm just talking. So some of the responses that I had back were super informative, like really taught me things that I didn't know. I didn't know that you could plug the car in at home on a granny charger. Never heard of that before. I honestly thought trying to plug the car in at home was a fire risk, but I'm learning something every day. So thank you to everybody that reached out to me and explained that. Super helpful. But again, for context, Yvonne's car hardly ever moved because we had a petrol Volvo. We used that pretty much everywhere we went. The electric was used for Yvonne to go to the office and back again. And even that, is few and far between in terms of her trips. It's about a 40-mile round trip to her office. The services that I went to is 2 miles from our house. I just went there because it was easy. But then in researching and finding supermarkets and everything that's round about us, although I will also say often they are in use, they don't work, or you need like 15 different apps in order to get the thing just to charge. But I accept, I'm learning, I'm not an expert on this. But I did have some suggestions. The D230261 message that came in was like, I don't know where you're getting the 1,500 quid charger from. There's nothing stopping you taking it with you. I accept that. The prices that we had were inclusive of installation, and those ranged from about £1,000 to £1,500. Now, it's probably been about 12 months since we had that quote done, and that's how much interest we've had in the car since then. Also, we've decided to leave, so getting the charger at the house just didn't seem to make any sense because we would be leaving it behind because there's nowhere to take it to, especially given the fact that we plan to exit the UK. But also, for me, it was a bit of a standpoint having to pay 1,000 to 1,500 quid to have a car charger when the company gave her the car in the first place, but won't provide the facilities to make the car operate, just seemed like madness. So hopefully some of that context explains. But I'll also accept you can find car chargers for £300-400, but you need to get it fitted. And I used to work for a utility company that fits these things nationally. So I was merely looking at the experiences from that. I had a comment here from Mark. Mark had said, well done, John, impressed with your fortitude at getting through the clearing. And then he gave me this really great comment. I'm interested in the question of whether possessions will become a millstone around our necks. That's a really good point. That really stuck with me this morning because in the last 12 months, I've saw my father pass away, and then I've spent that 12 months organising his estate, his house, his possessions, and going through everything that he left behind. Now, he was a very organised man, but he grew up in an area where he didn't have a lot, so he collected a lot. I really wanted to tell this story in the ADHD video that I posted, but I forgot. And that was about me learning about my father's ADHD and his compulsions before he passed away. I was at home, I think around April of last year, and I was visiting with him, and I was staying in my old bedroom where I had made a video from. And in that bedroom at the time was 2 wardrobes and a large chest of drawers. I opened them, and within each of those wardrobes and chest of drawers were clothes of my father's. Clothes that were brand new, all with the tags still on them. But the part that made me chuckle the most was that I had found 18 almost identical blue outdoor jackets. 18 of them. I went downstairs and said to my father, in my typical way of addressing him, which was to say, you know, Dad, I often wonder about where I get this compulsion to buy records and to go see a band over and over and over again and to collect things. I've just never understood where I got that passion from. Tell me about the 18 blue jackets that you've got upstairs and why they're all matching and still got labels on them. And my dad's reaction was like, oh, shut up, you, shut up. I like those jackets. But in that moment, I saw that my dad would go shopping and would be like, oh, new jacket. And he would bring it home, hang it up in the wardrobe, and then nothing would happen with it. And so to answer your point, Mark, I know those are just clothes, but it kind of broke my heart a little bit to take them down to the charity shop and hand them over, knowing my dad never got any use out of them. And I just think of the money that he spent on all of those. So it gave me a moment to reflect on myself and see how I was living. And at that point, to decide to make a change. So when Yvonne and I decided to start selling things, it was initially to scale back on what we had, but also just to kind of clear the ranks a little bit. And over time, that's then progressed to deciding that we would downscale as much as we could in order to leave little behind here in the UK, but also then to allow us to go travelling with the money that we've got from those sales. So I had a message here from Dawn Cooper, which was mainly about the vintage sales, but the part that I wanted to react to, which I thought was funny, was that she had mentioned about my panic and the car key going missing, and did I put it in with the envelope for the vintage. When I watched that video back last night with Yvonne, I could see in my own eyes the panic for a second. It was fleeting, but that's an adrenaline rush you get. But when Dawn mentioned to me about her past career being a manageress at the post office and dealing with keys, that triggered a few memories for me. When I started my career working in retail, I worked for a store called Halfords, which sells bikes and car accessories, car parts. And I worked there for, I think, about 4 years. And my very first ever job was as a part-time sales assistant in the bike section. But over the years, I worked my way through to eventually become a department head, and I would sometimes open and close the store. And the blame isn't on me here, but I can remember showing up on a Sunday morning to open the store, and I had my own keys. And as I went to unlock the shutter for this huge retail unit, there was a set of keys hanging in it from the night before. And one of my colleagues had just locked it up, walked away, got in the car and headed for home. Now, thankfully, it was on a retail park, so foot flow was very low. But your story, your message just made me chuckle about those past days. You know, when you've got your keys, whether it's in your front door, whether you've left them in the car, or you've left them in a multi-million pound store hanging up over a weekend. Thanks for sharing, Dawn. Okay, so those are just a few examples of some of the comments that I wanted to pick up on, and also just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what's going on, share a little bit more detail about me and past careers and reasons that I'm picking up on this activity of selling things within the house with a view of trying to make this channel and our second half of this year into a bit more about escaping and going and travelling. And at that, I would also just like to state my reasons for leaving the UK are more than just the economic climate. I've seen some responses from people saying about running away. Now, am I running away because I've decided that I want to sell up some possessions and go and travel? Honestly, in some respects, yes. What am I running away from? A 31-year career that I feel exhausted from. The constant, relentless chase of sales in that position, which was a constant hamster wheel rat race of getting up every day, chasing every kind of deal that was available all across Europe, and repeating the process 12 months later. A great mentor of mine once said about sales, especially when it comes to products, you don't wake up one day and the warehouse is empty. Well, unless the company's gone a bit wrong, but you just don't. The warehouse is never going to be empty. The sales will always be there, and you are just stuck constantly trying to deliver, and you're only as good as your last PO order, your last sales agreement, your last contract, and then it's on to the next one. And I just grew tired of that. Also, my father passing away meant that my ties here to the UK are almost non-existent for me personally. Of course, I have my wife to consider, and she has her own reasons for looking for a break. We are not saying we will never be back to the UK, but I need an adventure. I need something in my life to create some excitement for us beyond a job, the 9 to 5. And also the UK situation, taxation is not helping. As Wizzy mentioned, a 6-figure salary. Yeah. And do you know how much of that I walked away with at the end in my pocket for me to build a life with? Not the 6-figure salary, I can tell you. 50% tax rate I have been paying into, plus everything else that we are taxed on. This country is being run into oblivion. And next week will come an emergency budget, and brace yourself because we know what's coming out the back of that. More taxes. It is going to continue until breaking point. And for me, I'm kind of done with that. I'm kind of over it. My council tax has gone up. My car tax would have gone up. The fuel tax is going up. It's never enough. And I have had enough of that. So there are multiple reasons to the running away that are beyond just the economy, the government, the outlook of the UK. There's more to it than that for me. But hopefully that's shared a little bit with you rather than just me include it in a video and move on. Now, moving forward, any questions that you have, any comments, please feel free to reach out to me. I've had a couple of emails from viewers just asking about general how to start a channel, how to find the motivation, how to talk, what to record it on, how to edit it. And again, I open that invitation. If you're looking for some information and I can help, as amateurish as I am in this, I'm more than willing to engage in communications with you and share information. Because really, quite often in the comments, what I hear back is a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge. So it's really good to share. Thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, the nostalgia video. Hey, that's going to be fun. Can't wait to share with you what we're having tomorrow. But have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this. We'll see you in the next video.